The influenza ban has been lifted from this city, owing to a decrease in the number of cases. The schools and theaters have been opened after having been closed for weeks. Masks are worn no longer. Hello there, welcome to Headlines and Voices. This is the channel where we find old articles from publications across the United States that date back a century or more ago. And some of these things are just absolutely fascinating. And I think what we have here today you'll find pretty interesting. It's a short article, but it kind of touches on some of the things that we're dealing with in our world today during the pandemic. This is dealing with specifically the Spanish influenza, and the article that I've got right here is from the Alaska Daily Empire on November 13th, 1918. So and this was in Juneau, Alaska, where this newspaper is from. And the reason I'm reading this is one of the things that caused us to create this channel was the success of a book that I wrote called Virus 1918. And basically what it is it's just a collection of newspaper articles, the research that I had done, finding all these articles about the Spanish influenza, and then published it so that people could compare, see the things that were happening back then. And it's pretty fascinating stuff, how similar much of it is. And so, but there were a lot of things that we couldn't fit into the book. And so I'm going to read one of them that this was not in the book, but this is kind of an interesting little article about the Spanish influenza. And just by the way, if you like these videos, please like the video, subscribe to our channel, and leave any comments down below, especially if there are topics you'd like us to do research on. It doesn't have to be the influenza. If you watch our channel already, we have so many other things that we're reading articles on. And if you enjoy American history, these are fun things for you. So this article, once again, this is from November 13th, 1918, the Alaska Daily Empire in Juneau, Alaska, and the title of this article is Influenza Ban is Lifted from City of Seattle. The theaters and schools reopen after having been closed there for weeks. So, Seattle, November 13th. The influenza ban has been lifted from this city, owing to a decrease in the number of cases. The schools and theaters have been opened after having been closed for weeks. Masks are worn no longer. New cases are mostly where masks not worn. This is really interesting because I read another article on this channel where they were saying the exact opposite, which is so fascinating because it's the same discussions and arguments that we're having in our society today. And it was 100 years ago, they're talking about the same things. In nearly every instance, it is reported by the Juneau authorities where new cases of influenza have been reported. It has been where those contracting the disease have not complied with the request to wear masks. It is said that the most effective weapon yet discovered in the fight against influenza is the mask. It prevents the disease germ from being inhaled, and it is quickly destroyed by contact with the cold air. In Seattle and other cities, people are fined who appear on the streets without being masked. Douglas recently put compulsory regulations into effect, and the propriety of doing so at Juneau is being discussed by the authorities. Now there's a subhead, Epidemic Spreading, and this one's from Nome, November 13th. The influenza epidemic is raging here and spreading throughout the peninsula. The natives are suffering beyond description, with many deaths among both the natives and whites. The soldiers at Fort Davis are stricken. The camp is short of doctors and nurses. And here's another subhead, Many Nome Deaths. Governor Thomas Riggs Jr. received word this morning that there have been 126 deaths among the natives of Nome and 12 deaths among the white population. New cases reported. That's another subhead. According to Dr. L.O. Sloan, City Health Officer, Spanish influenza conditions are still about the same in Juneau. Both Dr. Sloan and Dr. L.P. Dawes reported new cases this morning. And then this is the final subhead, and it says, Get your mask. A special meeting of the City Council has been called for this evening for the purpose of taking further steps to keep down the influenza. It is understood an ordinance will be passed compelling all persons to wear masks. Anyway, isn't that fascinating? Having these things where you're compelling people to wear masks, and it's the discussion that we're having today, whether or not people can do it and if it actually does any good. And it's so interesting to think how little these things have changed over the last 100 years. The same issues are being talked about today. But the encouraging thing in this article for me was that in Seattle, at least at this time, November, whatever it was, 12th or 13th from this year, which was 1918, that they put it out that they could stop wearing the masks. And that sounds kind of awesome. So anyway, hope you enjoyed that. Just want to remind you that these videos on the Headlines and Voices channel are sponsored by Audio Mover. Audio Mover is the company that takes your old audio and videotapes and converts them to digital. It's your history, and you need to preserve it. And so you can send your tapes to Audio Mover. Audio Mover will make a permanent digital archive for you and put it on a thumb drive. If you have audio, we can make audio CDs. Lots of different things can be done with your audio and video tapes to get them permanently archived. And so you can go to audiomover.com and you can get your order started there. And when you get into checkout, just type in the word headlines in checkout, and you can get 15% off your order. And we will leave a link in the description down below. Anyway, thanks for listening. Headlines and Voices is sponsored by Audio Mover, the company that takes your history, your old audio and videotapes, and converts them into digital. Visit audiomover.com to learn more. Headlines and Voices is a production of Thick and Mystic Media. Visit thickandmystic.com.